Welcome back, everybody, to APAC North. Game number 3 about to begin. Sandbox versus FAV Gaming, kicking it off between the two squads, and unfortunately for them, took L's in our last Playday in APAC North to kick off this stage. So how do they do it today? Big battle between the two, and honestly, I say that considering the fact that it shouldn't be. It should be Sandbox an advantage, but everything's up in the air. Welcome back to the analyst desk. I'm Milosh. With me are Fresh and Demo. And how about we talk about Sandbox first and what they have to offer? Because it was a bit disappointing last week against Reject.
It was a little bit disappointing, Milosh. And this team, as much as I love and I think they can be great domestically, they do disappoint me. And I don't want to start by talking about a team in a negative light, but especially last week. They got into that process-driven map of Clubhouse, and this team has absolute gunners left to right.
Good. But
then when some have to drop into a support role, into a breach role, into a process-driven team-based game, they struggle, and that's exactly what happened last week. But this team, we know it's got so much quality. Arakaze was a great pickup. Good Boy is the next prodigy. We know how good Shire, Lemmy Taylor, and Static can be as that core that, you know, from the previous Cloud9 rosters. And yeah, I really like this team, but they do have a kind of soft underbelly, I would say.
It was an upset last week. You can't look at it any other way. Sandbox,
fair enough. Day one
internationally driven team, successful international team, you know, big players who have played in big stages, and they lose against a team which hasn't done any in form of Reject. No slander to the Reject or anything, but it should be Sandbox. They should be setting down the marker, and they should be saying that, hey, we are going to be contesting for that top 2. We will be at the next major. And now I think that they've almost kicked the crutches beneath them and that kind of support that they had. Now we're thinking back to, are they really the real deal? Are they really?
I'll turn to their opponents, FAV, because we haven't seen FAV on those big stages in forever, really. And if you're counting, depends on which player was where. But they went up against Spear Gaming on last Playday, and it did not work out at all. Can they do it today against a theoretically tougher opponent? I
mean, that's the thing, is it's theoretically a tougher opponent, and when you look at FAV, they generally get outclassed in a lot of situations as well. Individually, they are a team that has always had a good idea, but then always faltered in the late round, and I don't think last week was any different.
Typhon is stepping in today.
Yes, that's what I was going to mention. New player. Fresh ideas, fresh, not you, fresh maybe, you know, communication perhaps, you know, just a little change in one player going out, one player going in can make a big difference. We've seen it plenty of times before, or it could just get worse. You have no idea with moments like this.
I think we've seen this from FAV where they've been in and out. In terms of Typhon coming in, K-Razor going out. The same happened in stage 2. I'm not exactly sure. I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure what's going on
everybody on their
toes.
I
don't know if they've got a contract with K-Razor that he plays one game a stage, because he played one game in stage 2 as well. Not too sure, but they've brought in new players. They're trying to improve. We can never, the one thing we can never criticize about FAV, as much as they generally do have their struggles, and I think there's a plethora of reasons why they have the struggles, is that they are always trying to improve.
All right, map bans. Which map will we be playing on for this series? There's a lot here on both of these teams. Sandbox, if they want to stay in the top 2, they need to win this one. This is a game for them to try to take. And then we're going to go to Bank for this. Sandbox banning out Villa just before, starting off on the attack. FAV picking the defense start. Does this fit the stats?
Yeah, I think so. I think Sandbox have baited out really well there, because they've managed to leave Villa in for FAV. And Sandbox don't really play Villa. But going to Bank, it's a team that both teams kind of like. It's a middle-of-the-road map for both teams. It's one that I did have as expected. FAV tend to play there a little bit more, but obviously tend to be a weaker team. They're very good on the attacks, but they're not good at defending on Bank. In terms of that's FAV.
Look at the first ban for Sandbox as well. Club gone immediately. Not even wanting to linger on what happened last week.
Get rid of it.
But overall for Bank, more flexible, I think, than what Clubhouse brings. I think the fact that the hard breach gadgets are going to be really good as well for getting hatches from below, so you're not going to be headlocked into the Habana, the Thermite, so you have a bit of options there, a bit of give or take. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of ways into Bank, so as we know, Good Boy can just slip in, can make the magic happen, and that's the player I want to see, not be restricted, let him go out and just tear them apart.
Well, because we still have 30 seconds, final point, FAV, what do they have that can actually beat Sandbox?
Oh, I really hope that they've worked on their defenses on Bank, because like I say, in the last 2 times they've played it, out of I think the 9 rounds they've played, they've got 1 defense. Conversely, the last time Sandbox played Bank was against Reject, and they got 5 attacks. So I really hope they've gone away and reworked their strategy and thought process a little bit. They probably will have with the 2 new players.
Finally, Demo, your thoughts? Game's ready.
It's difficult to not see not see Sandbox win. I think they need that bounce back to get them back in the.
You'd expect it.
To get in the conversation of getting top 2. They need a win today. They need it. They need it.
That's what Sandbox needs for this Playday, really get themselves into better shape, though. Thank you very much, gentlemen. FAV versus Sandbox about to go live. Let's toss it to our casters, Stez and Ace.
Thank you very much, Milos. Welcome back to the desk for Game 3 of the day. You got me and Tim for the last couple. Tim, I did clock earlier on when I saw Big Tim up on the screen next to me. Our shirts aren't massively different today, but you are obviously at home, so the lighting is a little bit different. But I do like the blue synergy we got going on.
Yeah, mine's pink underneath. You can't really see it. It's pink rather than white.
I do love that shirt.
Yeah,
it's so nice.
It sort of comes across. How do they build that synergy, Des? We don't even have to be in the same country to match up the shirts.
You know what I realised earlier on? I was going through all my shirts because I've got I took a picture yesterday and put it on Twitter. I've got I think 4 shirts backstage now that are all blue or white and blue or some variation of it. I thought, okay, did I bring any shirts that aren't blue? The only one I've got is that one that's like a map, but the only other shirt I've got is my one that is all blue. So I've got 5 blue shirts and one that is like a greeny kind of blue. I've really made a mess of this and not brought much variety, so I guess I'm stuck in blue for the entire stage.
I was going to say even the map shirt. I mean, it's kind of sad really how well we know each other's shirt collections, but even the map shirt is kind of blue.
What do you mean it's sad? We end the stage, we get back home, we spend a whole night together going through our shirts, analysing the stitching. I know every detail about that shirt.
So you should. So you should.
I can tell you how many little leaves there are on it as well. I think there's 27.
Let's get into this. Sandbox versus FAV, and Sandbox need a win. I mean, FAV bringing in Typon in place of K-Razor, it can do good things, it can refresh things, but also it could maybe create a crack, maybe create a hole, maybe create an opportunity here and there for Sandbox. It might just be exactly what they need.
It may well be. Sandbox, obviously one of the 2 teams that made it to the major last stage as well. So coming back in here with the same team, more experience under their belt. You have their new players, of course, and Arakazi really starting to step up alongside Good Boy. You're looking and saying, cool, it's a time now that these guys really start to shine and dominate the scene. But as we were talking about with Cyclops in the last game, destroying Damwon Kia, the questions now start to rise. Are we going to have 2 Korean teams in the top 2? Or is it Japan's time to rise? And this is a matchup between Korea and Japan. It's worth remembering. For FAV, I'm a little bit nervous. They dropped my homeboy, Tim. Number 2's gone.
Well, I mean, it's about life after number 2, isn't it, really? It's about, we know that number 2 was a really great player.
There's before Cries, there's after Cries, there's before number 2 and after number 2.
Before number 2 and after number 2. You gotta, you gotta be able to move on. You gotta be able to adapt.
Brilliant.
Those changes have obviously been made for a reason. And FAV need to show us that they can be consistent. I've always said, and I'm not saying that this is the case for FAV, but you can have sometimes a really great individual player, but maybe they just don't fit into that team structure. Maybe from their own opinion, maybe from the team's opinion, however it is. And sometimes you can actually perform better, with arguably a slightly, somebody who you might say, oh, they're not quite as skilled as that player. But when the team gels as a whole, your overall performance is going to be better. And so, that may be the case. Or, maybe you get somebody in who's even better anyway. So, FAV, the questions will be asked over the next, couple of months. We'll see just exactly how it plays out.
Right, well, let's get into it then. Round 1 is already underway. In case you haven't already noticed, Sandbox do start on the attack inside with a couple of really spicy picks. We've got the Amaru coming out from Good Boy, and you've also got MV bringing along that Blitz. Now, commonly you wouldn't see something like the Blitz being brought along unless there is a rush or a very aggressive push coming out inside the round itself. MV currently has got himself set up around square, so not quite the dive in, and I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, but you've probably got a good sniff there. If someone's shooting at you with a pistol, it's very likely to be someone that doesn't have a good primary. You're looking towards a shield operator in that case.
Afro just going to be keeping himself on those marble stairs, playing at the Valkyrie. We've discussed this countless times as more and more defensive operators come to be popular in the bans. Mira Kaid being the ones to go today. Valkyrie is seeing that little bit more playtime, and almost every time available, we will see her played. Now then, Envy Taylor is going to look to pressure down into Archives, but it's Arakazi who actually gets things underway, managing to find the opener onto Yura and giving us our start. It's 5 versus 4, and Sandbox, they've got themselves off on the right foot.
Probably goes to show why you'll often see defenders on this map. If they're trying to do a roam when defending downstairs, they will base themselves around staff and open area. Anywhere else, and you're just going to find yourself getting picked off. They've now lost 2 in these early stages of the round. However, light goes unchecked, does find Arakaze. Clearly no drone there sat inside a kitchen area to feed that light was lurking on that door.
Like, just going to keep playing his life up at the top of those stairs there. Blue stairs, we know, not somewhere that defenders want to be giving up on this basement site. It gives a lot of access into server, exactly where Envy Taylor's trying to push at the minute. If they get this right, they could trap Light in there. If they put a bit of pressure on from Square Skylight as well at the same time, they may well be. There's no option for him to get out of there alive. But let's not forget the often forgotten counter that is Oryx to Shields. He will be able to just run over the top of Envy Taylor should the opportunity present itself. Goes to make the challenge and finds the kill. I was also going to question the wisdom in challenging Oryx with a pistol only. That was bad timing from Sandbox Des. He needed support. They needed the second man there before Envy Taylor pushed in.
I'm getting real flashbacks to SI21 where this team, Sandbox, oh my word, Light. Sandbox were plus 29 on entry despite getting knocked out early on. They were so good at starting rounds, like we've seen here. 2 early kills, and now they've conceded 4. There was no pinch on towards Light. There was no response. There was no drone on the man, and now he might be able to get an ace. Yes, he will with the last bullet. That's the way to start the game out, and truthfully, Tim, so much of that comes down to Sandbox just not closing in on their man.
I agree with you. I'm not going to take it away from Light. He got an ace. Well done, Light. Congratulations. Great round for him. But ultimately, the opportunities were presented to him. There's some smart movement in there, don't get me wrong. But let's remember the last couple of kills there. He gets Envy Taylor on a blitz who has absolutely no business being in servers, challenging Oryx at that sort of range. Envy Taylor knew that the push was going to come towards the bottom of Blue Stairs. That's why he was pushing into servers, to try and trap that player. A blitz with a pistol is not the person to be in there trying to trap somebody who's going to come down those stairs, because Blitz excels at short range engagements. He needs to be up at the bottom of those stairs, even getting onto those stairs to be able to push the Oryx. But guess what? It's an Oryx. You can't push him like that with a Blitz. And also, Envy Taylor's going to take a lot of challenges then from server door, and that's exactly why he was right at the back of the room amongst the server stacks. What challenge is he really going to make there? How is he going to win that fight? Very little chance for him against Light. And then Light is able to just hit prone near dirt tunnel and just wait for players to feed in. Big mistakes from Sandbox.
What it will also give to them, though, is 3 players did round the corner pre-firing at him, and he did take a couple of tags throughout, so they had the right idea, just couldn't land those headshots. That's it.
He absolutely got the kills.
He won his ones, but there was more Sandbox could have done to mitigate the damage that he was doing there. Again, you find your 2 entry kills, right, hamburger, the famous call, pause, get on your drones, figure out what to do next. You've already got such a big advantage, so hopefully Sandbox can clean it up, but fair play to Light. That's one way to get your team motivated and roused for this game. Now, speaking of which, is here once again, now looking for these players on the rappel, one much closer than maybe you'd first anticipate. Nearly manages to bring down Envy, but instead, nearly, he returns for seconds, returns for afters, Tim. Brings down Captain Envy, gets the KB off the board. Again, a wonderful start for Light.
And what a tasty treat he's just found for himself after his main meal, Des. Right now, Light is absolutely eating Sandbox up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Unstoppable. Good boy. He's going to get in. He's going to continue that chase through the mid-floor. We are on top floor here, so there's likely only going to be Light playing underneath. The rest of FAV are going to be on the top floor. And any more damage that Light can do here, honestly, I think is going to be critical for Sandbox in this round yet again. If he gets another kill or 2, this one's done.
That's where Light's just turned around and gone, boys, I got 5 kills. I'm playing what I want. I'm going where I want. And he's shown that he can keep on doing it as well. Wonderful stuff. And as you say, he seems to be the only one. I say that. He was the only one lurking downstairs for the longest time. I imagine now will slowly start working his way back upstairs, if not a little bit quicker. Given they've again got that entry, why stay out for too long? You've already had a bit of success. Now use that to hunker down on site. You can see shields being rotated now that they've lost the lobby control, for example. So I think overall good decision-making being shown by Light and the rest of FAV.
Good boy just waiting his turn at the bottom of the spiral stairs there, waiting for pressure to mount elsewhere. Arakaze just looking for the potential of a pick onto marble stairs as well. But the problem is, Des, that Sandbox are just burning time here. They sat waiting. They're not the defenders. They've got to get in and get stuff moving. And here they go. Static manages to find Europe, but there's Light again. Manages to get the trade. Type onto Arakaze. Leaves us now 4v2. And this is another round that Sandbox are going to struggle to turn around from here. 45 seconds left to go. They're having to reposition, they're having to adjust and adapt. Moving up the main stairs, they're playing into so much utility there. Great kill from Good Boy onto Light, but he was low health there. He practically could have thrown his gun at him and got that kill.
A flashbang would have got a kill, literally. Throw it at him. The couple of points of damage it does would probably have been enough to finish him off. And still, I feel Light's done his damage here. He's got 2 kills in the round. Taipon's found himself 1 as well. This looks to be a closeout. Shah, the last one left standing. And you can just see here how the attack coming out of Sandbox is shallow. Shields, 2 of them are still left standing. Barbed wire is still in place. They're just crumbling, it feels, a lot of the fundamentals that teams need to get right to win rounds.
Exactly, and the thing is, looking at Sandbox at the minute, and I know this may change as the game continues, I hope it does for them, but right now, I'm even looking and I'm thinking, is this just because FAV are on defence, they're playing their own setups, they're doing it well, and I don't think it is. It's Sandbox are just playing badly. You know, they're giving kills up to FAV. Envy Taylor on the window at the beginning of the round. If you're going to keep making that challenge, you got to win it. You got to be killing Light, and then moving on from there, and Sandbox just haven't been able to get themselves established at all yet.
So, what's got to change? Big thing for me is going to be the drone work, the consistency behind it. They've not been low on drones in either of these rounds. Back in that first round, when Light got the flank on them, they had 6 drones out on the field. And I mentioned not a single one was sat inside kitchen or around open area and staff to feed the information that there is a roamer here looking to cause trouble. Forgiven that it isn't Oryx, and we know his hatch-hopping tendencies can be a bit of a nightmare if not caught in the early instance. But let's see them really tighten the net a little bit here. You get that entry, let's get back on drones, slow things down. You said a little bit of success from Good Boy already. Let's try and double down on that. And I think here, putting him on the nook, definitely not a bad shout. Has those 2 frag nades in back pocket, an operator that is banned, I'd say relatively consistently on Bang, but also target banned against a number of teams. And when I say that, especially, I'm thinking of Rogue, of Crying in particular.
Good Boy going to open up that front door, this time bringing along the knock, so that's going to be the big change for Sandbox here to keep an eye on, and going to be looking to go in there, keep himself off the cameras, maybe put those nades to good use, but essential first of all for Sandbox is going to be top floor control. They're playing into the mid floor open area it is this time around, so they need to make sure that they're not going to be getting bullets rained down on top of them from above. That's exactly what Arakaze is doing. Look at that,
Good
straight
read,
in,
good read.
blows up on the soft wall. That is nice baiting there from Arakaze potentially. Has to make the challenge, has to make the pre-fire, because he's just a little bit concerned that he's going to get swung, and he's going to have challenges coming from all directions here if he's not careful, Des.
Just a couple of cheeky shots coming out. Almost finding Afro down the half HP, potentially not getting pinched from inside the lobby. This is better. The 2 versus 1, and they get the kill they're looking for. Sure, they lose 1 more out on the roam, but it's 2 kills to Sandbox. Now, think about what I said, Tim. We've gone about 75 seconds in the round. You've got a 4v3. Hamburger, hamburger, hamburger. Slow the hell down. Get on the drones. Look at the amount of utility they've still got in back pocket. They've got so much that can work for them in this round that I would now hate to see them pick up the pace and try and do things even quicker.
A good start from Good Boy. Getting that opening kill onto Light as well. Light, of course, has been absolutely terrifying so far, so they'll be glad to see him gone. Now then, we're going to have that vertical work coming in. Nitro will be unsuccessful. Control of the top floor is in possession of Sandbox. They've lost Shy all go along the way, but they still have the book, so not the end of the world. So it's looking reasonable for Sandbox right now, but like you said, Des, they need that pause moment. They need that stop and think. They need that time to just plan what comes next, but don't take too long over it. A minute left on the clock. It's time to start thinking about sight and having that conversation. Where are we pushing from? Where's the final execute? And what is Shin doing for FAV?
About to walk through bleepers and give himself away, but Static's got the read this time. Smart. We've seen so many teams use that flank. I always think about Yas, for example, for Dan Wonk here, pulling that kind of play off several times at big events, and now there's just Taipon left alive. Sandbox have played this much better. They've got those 2 kills. They've slowed it down, focused their attack around square, and have picked up the kills they needed. They've even dealt with the flank play coming out that crushed them back in round 1. Much more convincing, and if they don't close this round out, it's going to be a miracle play from Taipon.
It really is 1v4. Can't find the first. It's a trade, actually, as he does pick up Static, but it's going to be Good Boy moving in from behind. Manages to get that final kill through the soft wall rotation, and that is going to be Sandbox putting 1 on the board, and not too soon. The problem that they face at the minute, obviously, if things continue as they are, it's going to be a 4-2 half if FAV are able to lock down basement and top floor again. even the potential for a 5-1 if they manage to get that tertiary site done. So Sandbox, they've got to carry that momentum. Yes, they've got that round done, but it was the third choice site for FAV. They've now got to come in and do it on the first choice. If they do, they are well back in the fight.
All right. Slow recovery, but it's still a recovery inside the first quarter. Now they have 3 more rounds to repeat, essentially. You're hoping they make amends for the previous mistakes that we have seen coming out of them. Like this time round, not going to be on the Oryx, instead stepping across to playing on the Goyo, which to me communicates a small change in how they, well, not really a small change, it's quite a big change. They don't want to be playing too aggressively out on the roam. They realise now that Sandbox maybe have cracked it to say, okay then, plan B. Let's sit on site, let's try and play time denial, let's use C4s, for example. They've got 3 of those on side, smokes, Goyo canisters. It's all about burning time. And my only query around that is, how much time of Sandboxes are you going to be able to waste? If they start knocking at the front door with 90 seconds still left, you won't have enough utility left. If you're doing so in, say, the last 40 seconds, then you've got more than enough utility to force Sandbox to make some really, not so much questionable, but unfortunate plays. They'll have to run through smoke. They'll have to deal with those Goyo canister fires. They'll have to deal with C4s potentially coming at them as well. And this is kind of the reminiscent of the old bank meta that we saw for a bit of a while last year, when you see things like Chankra and smoke coming out at the same time, with the goal of burning through about 90 seconds. It's a similar kind of play, just different operators pulling off the same thing.
Here we go then into the action phase proper. The first 30 seconds of drawing has been done, and it's time that Sandbox are going to be getting themselves inside of the map. Looking to move in through ATMs potentially here. We've just got one at the bottom of the windows as well, just outside of CEO. So a well spread setup to begin with from Sandbox. I think they know that they were punished, from that roam game last time. They're not going to have it this time around. Arakaze managing to take down Yura for a nice opener. And that kicks us off fantastically well for Sandbox once again.
In both rounds now, you've seen members of FAV try and flank into or push into a member of Sandbox that they don't think will be expecting them, but Sandbox are ready and waiting. They've got the angle held. Think about last round, we had that flank coming up blue. You had Static on the Thermite just ready to dome him as soon as he walked round the corner. Same things happened again there. So FAV are still trying their luck here, hoping they can catch Sandbox unawares, but it does feel, after round 2, we've seen a real reawakening of Sandbox here as they've warmed into the game.
Droning is continuing here. Really wanted. They've got 8 on board as well, so absolutely no excuses for Sandbox here at the halfway point. That's something that FAV need to be thinking about. They need to be getting on top of those drones because Sandbox are going to be coming in here, I would expect, with a wealth of information about what is going on inside a site, but also around the map as well. They've got that mid-floor control. They can start to lock things down, open up hatches. 1 minute 10 left to go. Not badly positioned here. They're starting to take control. They just need to make sure they've got servers if that's the side that the push is going to come from, but it's looking like it might mount up for a bit of marble stairs action here.
Well, you'd think so, but then truthfully, that's not the only angle you can push down. Normally, you'll have someone coming down there later in the round as sort of a flank, right? They'll look to be the backstab, whilst you have others looking to execute through hatches. Maybe someone pushes up through garage, but normally, the security focus is the go-to play. So if you were looking to drop into, say, Vault from lobby, you're looking for control instead of around elevators. And here we are, a couple of players now looking to get themselves set up. And here actually comes Good Boy. He has gone for that stealth drop actually through elevators, and he could be inside a site. Going to blow out the shield, but there's no one around for him to shoot, unfortunately, and he's still looking for his man. Hello?
Manages to find him. Good boy. Gets 2. What an absolute beauty of a backstab. Coming in from the knock. Typon last alive. 1v5. Shut down by Static. And that's going to be Sandbox not only getting themselves a second round in a row, but this time it's going to be flawless. And they are starting to get moving. Sandbox have woken up.
Now, there's every chance they didn't hear that, but when he threw the nade, I was like, well, that's screwed it up now. They're going to hear it getting caught by a magnet. They're going to hear it blowing out the shield. But instead, he still jumps inside. We didn't hear it obviously exploding, but it must have been caught by something. Hops inside. They have no idea he's there, and he kills 2 of them. That from Good Boy is a great play. Again, I don't want to pin it all down to FAV and say, oh, you guys should have known about that. Lol. No, it more came down to maybe they didn't hear the sound. I'm not quite sure. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and just say overall it was a very good play from Good Boy.
It certainly was, one way or another. Whether the lack of reaction is there from Favo or not, ultimately he got the job done that he set out to do. So Sandbox, they level things up 2-2, and we're going to be back up onto the top floor now. Castle being brought along just to shore up that north side, and we see that a lot of the time. It's just to reduce the impact that can be had from those windows. Obviously, there's still the 2 directly into A site, but it just means utility's got to be burnt or lines of sight cannot be gained from those windows into the rest of the site, into Banana, and it just reduces their impact a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's not a bad solution either.
I've thought about it a lot for maps like Consulate, because the big, obviously, worry people have with Consulate is top floor is just an absolute nightmare with the amount of window play you can get away with. The reason why it's not so bad on Bank is because often the windows that you want to be castle barricading aren't the windows themselves. They're the ones that are slightly inset. The ones that you can't punch or sledgehammer out. They're ones that you have to hit with things like Zofia impacts. Things that you have to get Gone 6s out for. So you're actually in a pretty comfortable spot to go through. It forces the attackers to trade something like nades or, like I say, Gone 6s to get rid of them, which is why it's more feasible here. So maybe in a future Consulate rework, we either see the site move back or we see the ability for some more strongly defendable points using things like castle barricades. Just a small little thought that I've had over the last few days, to be honest with you, Tim.
Just picking it out of the old noggin there, Des.
Yeah.
Just, oh, here goes the Amaru. Is Goodboy going to go for it?
mean,
He's poised, he's ready. Is it? This is it. It allows him to get inside of the map. These things work both ways, just like angles. As Emzo famously said, you know, every bit of utility can be used not only to support your defense, but also it can hinder it as well.
Trying.
Goodboy, just wait. I cannot. Here he goes. Goodboy in and cut down by Shin. There go. The light screens coming in at the same time, and this has not panned out for Sandbox. It's all gone wrong, Des. They're getting absolutely slaughtered inside a site here. It's 1v4. Shio low health on the Dockerby, trying to get something going here. Manages to get a little spray down onto the castle, but no more than that. As Light finishes things off, and FAV, they stood strong, stood tall, and got themselves round 5.
1, didn't drone out correctly. 2, everything from the Sens was dumped into the smallest corner of the room you can imagine. The times we've seen Sens be used in a way that feels sensible is when you've seen it used by, for example, Talon and Clubhouse. They'll open up East Breach, they'll block off Red Door, they'll block off Cash Door. It gives them the entire control of site with no ability for the defenders to get in there without having to run in blind and suddenly be exposed to, God, potentially an unlimited number of angles. Whereas there, for the attackers, or defenders, sorry, just spray into a very, very tight area, chuck a C4 in there, and chances are you're getting kills. So no drones coming in, didn't deal with the Warden, went into a very, very tight area. Lots of things wrong with that attack from Sandbox. I don't hate the idea of making use of the Ascends and the Amaru, that's okay, but you need information to make it work, and they simply didn't have that.
Going to be setting up in open area, then FAV moving on. They did have basement available, but having lost it in the previous round, they've chosen to head instead to open area for their final defensive round after winning that top floor. So there's no real loss or negative in doing that. They've already lost this site once. They'd lost the basement once. Why not give this one another go? They need to hold on to top floor for a little bit longer than they did last time. For me, the clearance was very good. I think it was Goodboy and Arakaze across that top floor managed to get 2 kills, and that just really opened the round up for Sandbox. So if FAV are going to position players up there, they got to hold on for longer. Yura, he's ready for this. Is he going out? He's thinking about it.
Surely not.
He's going to move himself away. Can't find himself a challenge, and will continue to fight later into the round.
Makes me nervous, especially when you're carrying a C4 in back pocket and still got a pest as well. Like Afro, I could maybe understand. His utility is not all gone down, but I'd say it's not as impactful as the C4 and those pests coming out in terms of the Geminis and the shield. Of course, the shield has already been placed down, though. Either way, backs away, keeps himself on his feet, and is now repositioned here. So keeps on moving the front line back here as the pressure comes in from Sandbox up towards the north side, but still making them ask questions. And it's Light to strike first and bring down Shile.
Good start. Good start once again for FAV. A better start this time, Des, than the last time we saw them defend. As I said, the top floor had to work out better. And there come another 2 as Yura makes it 3 in the round for FAV overall here. 5 versus 2. And in a matter of seconds there, 10-15 seconds, Sandbox are now facing a 2v5 and long angle challenges into stop.
It's just lazy, Tim. There were 9 drones, there still are actually, 9 drones available. They've got a Decabi on side. They've got so much there to work with to get control of top floor. I think back to even teams like G2 who are looking a little bit messy right now. You normally see Doki try and push in through the top floor from those windows. He always has a couple of drones in front of him, figuring out what's going on before he just steps inside the map. Whereas for Sandbox here, you still have drones available, but they're not being used to get your entries inside the building safely, and they're being picked off one after another. It's no surprise they're sat in a 2 versus 5. It feels like a real bruising to lose 2 to 4 on the attack, but truthfully, it's deserved.
It is right now. We're going to have the yellow pings coming out. Opportunity as Static drops into sight, manages to get a kill onto Afro, but he's going to find himself getting challenged very quickly. Envy Taylor manages to find Typon, though. Honestly, Des, it'll be one of the big turnarounds in Siege history if they manage to save this. Shin manages to get one onto Envy Taylor, leaving Static all alone. He keeps going, Des. He's in a 1v1, surely not. Lights. He's the last man alive. He's had a great game so far, but Static does it, Des. He just goes route one. Drops into sight, kills everybody that he can see, and closes out the round for Sandbox. That is a huge mistake from FAV.
That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And this is the kind of thing I was commending them for in the early round. You know, take the initial pot shots here and there, step back, move the front line back, keep the line together. You go into a 5 versus 2. What are you hoping to do still out on the roam, man? Like, I don't know. That's where you pull back to sight. You see this in EUL on Monday when Walls, for example, get one entry out on the roam. All the 5 players come back towards site and go, cool, we're hunkering down. You can now come and try and hit us now that you're down 20% of your firepower. Yeah, I'm lost for words. That should have been a FAV round through and through.
Not the best performance, I think we can say, from FAV in that round at least. We're 3-3 on the half. We're going to move on. Let's move on and forget it.
They know where he is.
Let's move on and forget it, Des. Let's move on and forget it, as FAV are going to try to do here in round 7. 3-3, we find ourselves, and it's going to be Sandbox on the defense now. Let's see. I'm going to put it this way. Let's see if Sandbox can have a better defensive half than attacking, and let's also see if they can outstrip FAV on the defense, which, with mistakes like we just saw in the last round, I'm going to say that shouldn't be too much work.
Tim, I've tried so hard to be positive this stage. I've tried hard to see the best.
Is this where you've been tested to break it?
This is where I've been tested. This is probably, I'm so sorry to both of these teams. It's probably the worst game I think I've seen at the stage so far. It just feels at that level where the mistakes being made are ludicrous and obvious in the same stroke. But like you say, let's park it. First half is done. Maybe it improves in the second half and it saves some face.
I mean, ultimately, you know, the best way to put it probably is that rounds in this game consistently are being lost rather than won.
Yes.
You know, that's how it's going, and that is always going to denote...
At positioning things positively, Tim. This is why I have
I do try, and that is always going to denote a poor game of Siege, unfortunately, if that's the case. You know, we want teams coming out and winning rounds, and that's what Good Boy is going to try to kick things off by doing on the defense. The Azami is going to come in with a big opener. Yura has struggled in those entry battles so far. That's at least the 3rd opening death that I can remember for Yura. Not really been too heavily involved in the beginning of rounds, at least not positively for his team. Now, Shin, looking to move down those main stairs, needs to be careful. Is on the ace, which isn't necessarily always a supportive operator, as we've spoken about previously. But with Diffuser in hand, I would expect that that's exactly what Shin is doing. So doesn't want to get too aggressive down those main stairs.
So now my question is, when does Charlotte and Good Boy fall back? They've got themselves that entry. Fantastic. They're clearly looking for a second. They still feel they can commit here for a while because they do have the keeper barriers to help them out. But at some point, you do have to acknowledge it's getting a little bit too hot in the kitchen and get out. And Good Boy is found for free. This is the problem. Sure, you've got yourself that kill. That's a good time to fall away. But now you risk losing 2 players in response.
Just watching the hatch there, Shayo, like you say, time to fall away,
dear.
gets his kill and does so. Beautifully worked. Light manages to get 1, but can get no more as that continues. 4 versus 3 now. Sandbox got themselves back onto site, and this is not going to be easy for FAV from this point forward. They need to at least find themselves a kill or 2 before they can think about executing realistically, because I would expect...
Well, this is silly. Well, this is silly.
What's going on? Static is just running around. What do you not expect to be somebody to be sat on marble stairs where attackers are 90% of rounds?
I mean, now they've dropped themselves inside the vault and 2 players have got away with it. No one is watching. Afro might find himself a freebie here if he's fortunate enough, but the man's just sat on main stairs. In fact, no, a lie inside of elevator, tucked right in here. They have no idea he's here, I'd imagine. Shyle could pull off a massive play here, but a smash through the wall finds them 1. Can they find another? Shyle, it's time to turn around, buddy. You're in a 2 versus 3.
Got to do something. He's going to move out from the elevators here, and once again, a round just being turned around as defenders don't do enough. But Chile steps out exactly when his team needs him to. Nice flank, hits them from the elevators, and that is going to be FAV plummeting out of this round more than likely, as the final kill can't be found. It was getting closer as he sprayed through the soft wall, but ultimately Chile from the lift drops in with devastating effect and manages to close out the round. Sandbox take themselves the lead for the first time. It's going to be 4-3.
Again, really poor information collection. Light charging inside of open area and having no idea there was still a man sat on the hatch. Yeah, the number of times we'll see players holding at the back of that hatch, then dropping through when the fire gets a bit too hot. He held his position, and I thought surely he gets punished. He gets droned here, he gets forced to drop, he gets naded out like Good Boy did, but holds his spot and gets a free kill, and you knew that Light had no idea what was going on because his gun wasn't even aimed. He wasn't going around the corner ADS or even looking into that back corner, as you'll now see on the right-hand corner or the right-hand side of your screen. He has no idea what's going on. It's the biggest freebie of his life, no shot to send back the other way, and Charles gets out of dodge. Then you see this execute start to come through. After we saw that kill on main stairs as well, that was another great example of a poor read by Sandbox, really, from Static. You should know that once they have control of open, they're also going to have control of marble stairs and gives himself his life away for free. Then Shyle goes undroned. So the teams are literally trading back and forth who can throw those rounds more, it feels like, at this point. Fundamentally, though, it's Sandbox to come away the winner. I won't say it was an amazing round. It was well played by Shyle to get a big backstab on the go, but they've got to really tighten things up. Both teams need to. Otherwise, this could go through into overtime as a real burning hot mess.
I mean, the other big problem that I've got with that round is, without focusing on the negative too much, is that a number of those kills, as we commented on the marble stairs kill, but you picked up on Light moving in as well and getting shut down from the hatch, they are just positions that they should expect players to be sat in. Static, Light, both guilty of it. One on either team, and they're just running into areas with blinkers on, just not considering that somebody might actually be stood. If we made a heat map of bank days, marble stairs would be bright red on Locker's attacks. That hatch would be bright red on Locker's defense. You know, this is where players play. What are you not doing? You shouldn't need a drone there to know that there's likely going to be somebody there potentially. And that is the sort of mistakes that need to be ironed out here. As it is, Sandbox, they've got themselves on top. They managed to hold on. Let's see if they can find some momentum. Let's get that as a foundation and build on it from here.
Alrighty. Oh, what's that, Tim? Is that a drone? They've discovered what the 5 is, Tim. They know what it is, and that's the kind of stuff you want to see. Drone him in, find your man, swing for the kill, easy peasy. Sure, he nearly lost it. He nearly fluffed it up, but I wouldn't have criticised him for the passenger play there because it was the right thing to do. Thank you, FAV, for restoring some hope.
Let's see if they can restore a little more as they continue on through the map. They've got the 5-4 advantage now. Shin's just waiting underneath. We quite often see somebody on an open area defense playing down there, looking, with Shin doing it, looking for that blue stairs flank later in the round. Shin is going to be the one holding that this time to try and make sure that his own moves don't get used against him. Out go the Selma Chargers onto the quad wall. They're going to have to clear off the mute jammers to begin with. But once that happens, it's going to give full access from Square. Now then, Shyle manages to find Euro, levels things up, and this is something that FAV can't allow to happen, that attrition.
Oh boy.
And we're going to have,
I was going
to say Arakazi underneath, and Shin was down there, but Shayol's still going to be there. Shin was watching earlier, and they need to be aware of that flank still being a possibility.
I didn't even think about the site being there, and then he was hopping back into a friendly site. I was like, hatch hop. Something's going on, but no, sure enough, there isn't. So at least evening things back out at that 4-4 point here as well. The one concern I had for FAV is, yes, they've got the Selmas down on that quad wall, but it's jammed out. They don't have any EMPs or anything to get it open. They're going to have to just push pretty directly here, and that's exactly what Light has done. Got himself control of Marble, now pushing inside of Bleepers, going quite aggressive here. Now the question comes, where is the rest of the team? What play are they making at the same time? It looks like it's going to be a hatch drop, but they're leaving it all down to chance here. This could be a slaughter. Never mind, there's a frog. There's 2 frogs dropping down the hatch, and a swing from Light. Perfect little bit of play. Sandbox not connecting their shots. I lie, they find 2. Afro is all alone, will not be able to get this plant down in time, and by the looks of it, the Sandbox should be able to close this one out comfortably.
And they will do, and that is going to give them a 2-round lead here. Puts them 5-3, and you start feeling like this could be a little bit of a stretch for FAV to be finding any of these attacking rounds. They've had their opportunities, and they've got opening kills, they've had man advantages. They haven't been able to make either into successful rounds yet. So honestly, Sandbox might just come away from today breathing a sigh of relief, Des, because they've not played their best Siege. That much is fair to say. But if they come across, come away with the 3 points that they desperately desperately need today, as Demo picked up on coming into this. You know, if you're going to be challenging for one of those, let's not forget it's top 2 spots now for majors. 3rd and 4th will mean absolutely nothing anymore, where it used to get you to the playoffs. Now you're looking at top 2. They need to be hitting the ground running, because Cyclops have. You know, and there are other teams there that are going to be powering towards those top 2, and losing 2 games out of 8, that can be chance ending essentially in the first 2 weeks.
No, absolutely. Truthfully, looking at how this game's going, I felt FAV probably played that round a little bit better as well. So for Sandbox, the job certainly isn't done. You know, FAV had the early drone going in. They had the 3-man execute on towards site. They even had 2 of their guns pointed the right way, but just couldn't get the cleanup, even though we saw Light get in on the Zofia and find that swing onto the hatch. It felt like everything was positioned right, but just couldn't hold themselves out. I'm not sure if they got flanked or what. I didn't quite catch the very end of it, but either way, Sandbox are the ones in the lead. FAV have got to tighten up some more ideas here, bring something extra if they're going to be able to close round 9 out.
So you're going to be the top floor for round 9. Sandbox continuing on the defense. Afro bringing along the Lion this time around. That's the one that jumps off the page at me when I look at the attacking lineup. Everything else pretty standard. So FAV maybe just a little nod towards a bit of a struggle with tying down the Sandbox roam. They just want to bring along that Lion, get everybody frozen in place. The top floor is not usually a huge problem in terms of the roamers. I picked up on it last time when we saw FAV defending here. You know, usually you might have one playing underneath at a push. Otherwise, there's too many positions on the top floor. We've got one near elevators, one in stock corridor. You'll usually want one in janitor, one in site. There's too many that need to be held on to. Now, Nade is going to go in. I don't think that's going to be successful. It's going to get picked up. Good boy could not be forgiven, considering he's the Wamai. If he gets taken out by the Nade, he's going to make the challenge there. Puts a lot of shots into Yura, dips himself away, but that's not really a terrible push from FAV. They get themselves established. But Des, what is going on?
How does he get that for free? I feel like we're screaming the same. I feel like a broken record, Tim. We're saying the same thing round after round, but you got 2 or 3 players hanging out here. 3 at this point, as you saw. One's now dead. Surely there's a drone somewhere inside a square, or just someone watching the angle and looking to push down as you capitalize. You know, challenge inside of janitor, for example, is normally the done thing, or even someone watching the windows. Like, there's a man on window as well. Like, they had so many things going for them to stop that happening, yet they've still got away with freebie onto the operator that, like you said, was probably the one that jumps off this page at you.
Typo just holding the windows there, doesn't want anybody coming out of the mountain, but I can't see the Sandbox are going to be taking that sort of risk at the minute. You're a half health, looking to push, get some sort of territory established. I was happy with the push that was coming out of FAV to begin with. They were getting themselves aggressively into stock. They'd managed to move Good Boy away. They were doing everything right, except watching the backside, and they allowed Shayol to come and bite them in it, and that was the big problem. Right now, they have taken that map control now, at least. They've got themselves established around janitor. They can start working. They need to clear elevators next. That's exactly what Yura's going to go for, but Good Boy says, no thank you, good night, shuts him down through the soft wall.
Forgive me for being a cynic, but I really would have loved to have seen Light here with 2 drones still on the field, get on one and kind of drone Yura in. You got the 2 of you stacked together, looking blind round the corner and being tagged down like the rest of your team are, and Typon is the last one left standing. Whilst they still had their dead madman flicking drones, no single player got on drones then to guide their players in. Again, cardinal sin.
Well, that Sandbox moving themselves on to map point here. It's going to be 6-3. One more defense will do it. They have won 3 sites in a row. So guess what? They get to go back down to their first choice. It's going to be back down to basement they go, and you'd have to bank on Sandbox locking this one out at this point. FAV have not really shown us enough on the attack so far. To be honest, Lockers was probably about their best attack, realistically. It was about the best opportunity that they've had. They did find themselves, really behind in the man count, but then somehow were able to get it back to a 3v2, but Sandbox able to hold on due to that big Shayol player that we saw coming out of the elevators. I think Sandbox, to be honest with you, are going to show us something a little bit better on defense this time. I don't think they're going to find themselves in that negative man count, and so FAV, if they didn't close it out last time, I think it's going to be even more difficult this time.
All right, FAV, I kind of feel like your jig's up here. This is it. Last chance to keep yourself in the game. Am I optimistic? No, I'll be very honest. However, they may yet still surprise us. A couple of changes coming in terms of who is playing what. We don't have Light playing on the Zofia this time. That's going over to Yura. It used to be his old main operator, and Light stepping across instead to bringing along the Twitch. So looking to try and zap out some of that utility, arguably. Not really sure what I'll be trying to target out, to be completely honest. Maybe you're looking for the bulletproof camera if you can get to it. You're looking for the Thorn Thunder... Thunderblooms. Why am I thinking Thunderblooms?
The Thorn Thunderblooms.
Thunderblooms sounds really
like
cool, but they are Razor Blooms.
Let's just mix them up a little bit. Let's get some lightning on them bad boys and see what happens.
Zaps as you walk past, insta-kill. That's the absolute dream. But outside of that, I don't really see much for it to target. Yes, there's the Yokais, but oh my god, he's just missed 2 shots on a Yokai drone. Please!
Okay, Des he's slipping into a bad place, so we're going to focus.
That was the
back
worst
on the
episode
round.
of Robot Wars I've ever seen.
It is 5v5. It's 45 seconds into the round, and I tell you what, whether it's the fun or the positive, I'll find it somewhere for you. I promise.
The fun, but it's like watching a clown show. It's just not good.
6-3. We find ourselves Sandbox in the lead, needing to lock down a 1 defense. They've taken themselves down to lockers, and at the minute they're playing pretty heavily down on sides. I think we've got. Oh no, Shiol and Envy Taylor have made their way upstairs. They're going to be holding on to open area. Here comes a push. Envy Taylor, he's going to move himself into square. Honestly, this could be a freebie. Des, they've no idea. There's a fear. Oh, Envy Taylor, no! He snatched at it and he's missed his opportunity.
Oh my god!
He somehow manages to flick 90 degrees and still find the kill onto Euro, but just that little pre-fire, he'd have had an absolute freebie without that.
Tim, what's going on? What is going on? They're getting the lobby hatch opened up. We may yet see another 2-man drop coming in from lobby. If we get to that point, there's still 80 seconds to play. There's 3 members of Sandbox still holding up on the ground floor here as well. 2 inside of open area, not really being directly challenged. Down comes Afro. He's got the right idea. There is a man sat just inside of Tellers. It's Envy, but can't find him.
Envy needs to be careful here not to overcommit. Brilliant kill through the soft wall. Managing to just find us a little nugget of gold in this game so far there, Envy Taylor. Shiol managed to find a kill on Shin as well, and as suggested, Sandbox, they've been able to lock this down much better than last time. The chance to win this site for FAV on the attack was much more likely back in round 7, but as I say that, the kills are raining in, Des.
Why is Light in basement and one still pushing square? How have they thrown a 5v2 down to a 2 versus 2 again? Static and Charlotte got to hold on. They've got smokes in back pocket. There's 25 seconds on the clock. Tighten up. Play as a team. You've still got a man upstairs. What is going on?
You're asking the big questions, Des, that there might not be any answers to. Afro's going to drop the elevator, finally supporting this attack. It's now 2v2 on site. Light moves in. It's Afro that's got the diffuser, though, but Light might just be able to support him here and getting this down, Des. This might happen.
Oh my God.
He was in. He shoots his own man, Des.
Get me
Shackle
out.
gets the final 2 kills, but there's a world where there's a team kill there. Oh, dear. That was so close.
Oh, my
Sandbox.
God.
They close it out, and a good victory for Sandbox. 7-3.
Good victory! Don't lie!
A good victory for Sandbox. They needed those 3 points.
Oh my god!
Oh dear.
Get me out, please! I can't face it anymore, Tim.
It's done, Des. It's over. It's over. Sandbox have won. They get their 3 points and they keep themselves at least in the challenge for one of those top 2 major spots going forward. Fav, I think there's some questions to be asked before the next Playday.
Questions, Tim? I'm going to need a whole report on my desk tomorrow, 9 a.m, explaining what we've just watched. Look, I said after 4 rounds, that might be one of the worst games we've watched at the stage. I might go as far as saying across the whole year. Look, the boys have tried, but there's some serious work to... I tell you what, let's just go to a break. I can't talk about it anymore. Let's go to break.